I want to go over something that I find rather fascinating, and that is a video that I made literally 10 years ago as of uploading this.
The year 2015 is consummating and 2016 is just over the horizon.
I think it's really telling that at the age of 24 years old, I decided to use consummate to not only sound a little bit more sophisticated, but also to use a word that is both commonly used in a sexual context and in the context of finishing something, which the secondary definition is what I was using that word for. But, come on. Of course there's a reason why I chose that word for the opening sentence of the video.
There's something about the New Year tradition that is quite peculiar among us humans. We tend to narcissistically revere our current generation as opposed to how things once were in the past. We spend a lot of time lionizing our scientific achievements, our social progress, and even our consistently growing understanding of the universe.
So far, I don't really have any disagreements with the video, but more so just with the fact that I was so snobby, and I was just trying so hard to sound smarter than I actually was back then. I feel like I've developed a sense of humility since then that isn't as snobby. I try to at least be honest with myself nowadays as to how informed I am with certain topics and things like that before I make big bold claims, especially with my nose all the way up. But hey, I've also been a punk for like most of my life, and I think it's fair to say that I pretty much embodied that attitude in my videos back then as I do now, and I just feel like I'm able to do that more sharply now.
But just like we only know as much as we can see in the observable universe, there is more progress that can be made within our own planet.
Is it that obvious that I've been watching Cosmos by Neil deGrasse Tyson and Cosmos by Carl Sagan on repeat for the last 2 years before making this video?
It is no surprise that there is a plethora of virulently xenophobic people that inhabit America, but an interesting poll recently surfaced to give everyone a perspective of just where America is right now. 30% of Republican primary voters nationally say they support the bombing of Agrabah. Agrabah is the country from Aladdin.
Oh yeah, I remember this. I remember how this fact alone just blew my mind, that these people who vote in our elections have political opinions that involve our government bombing fictional places. And you know, while that does still absolutely baffle me to this very day, I feel like we're at a point now to where that's like small potatoes compared to what happens nowadays.
Now, you may be thinking to yourself as you sit in your comfy little chair that the Republican Party is an ongoing laughingstock, but let us venture to the other end of the bipartisan dichotomy. We asked the Agrabah question to Democrat primary voters too. They opposed bombing it 36-19, while GOP supports bombing it 30-13.
Yes, I've been critical of the Democratic Party and liberals for quite a long time, and even further back than the creation of this video 10 years ago.
They still believe that Agrabah was a real place and a real city on this planet. This should show you that American citizens are not all that mentally coherent, let alone responsible voters. So far, the top 4 people running for office is a warmongering crony capitalist painted as a loose cannon and threat to the status quo despite having a long history of supporting it, a warmongering dynastic corporatist sounding only remotely humane during election season, a warmongering pseudo-libertarian that promises to fight the Washington machine, whatever that is, while supporting it, and a warmongering pseudo-socialist who makes empty arguments to help balance corporate welfare and end institutional racism.
Even though I am criticizing the presidential candidates for 2016, you can definitely hear the tone of my voice and the level of innocence that comes with it. You have to really put it into perspective that, truthfully speaking, we have had Donald Trump as the President of the United States for a whole decade. That does not mean that I believe that Donald Trump won the 2020 US presidential election. That's not the case. What I mean is that Donald Trump has been effectively in power, whether directly in power or through his influence in Congress, for a whole fucking decade. And I think about it at times where he has had so much influence on our culture and how much he has really rapidly evolved the extremism of Christian nationalism to such a degree, turning up that dial so much that it just continues to perpetually get worse and worse. But I think in my video from a decade ago, I was trying to highlight the point that the seeds for such a rapid acceleration of such society getting worse were already planted long before Trump's administration.
This is what we have to look forward to in 2016. And it's weird when people say it's insert year here and we are still insert particular issue here. Folks, we landed on the moon in 1969. The internet has been in the works since the 1960s. Smartphones have realistically been around since 1992, and Iraq has had free healthcare until America occupied it in the early 2000s. New innovations is nothing new, and backwards people will always exist. There will always be religious crack jobs who will attempt to repress scientific progress. There will always be Christian terrorists who will strike Planned Parenthoods and other clinics. There will always be Christians who will lose it over a Starbucks cup. There will always be Christians who want Pluto to be a planet. It's 2016 and we're still dealing with this.
It is 2026 and it got way fucking worse.
And being that it's 2016 does not excuse society from being as crummy as it is. The only way to move forward is to abandon the us and them mentality and think based on specific case scenarios. If you want to celebrate the new year, be my guest. But instead of looking into a superficial resolution such as dieting or saving enough money to buy a new bike or a dildo, try investing and educating yourself in cultures, science, and how to better yourself and others around you.
And that's pretty much the video. It wasn't really that long of a video to begin with. What do I think of my former video from a decade ago? Well, for one, I think I had my head up my ass. I definitely had an ego, and I could smell it from 10 years ago. And honestly, it's a little fucking obnoxious, if you ask me. But it is what it is. That was then, this is now, and my friends, I think we're in times that we are gonna have to say it's extremely unprecedented, even by the standards of the US empire. I am extremely grateful to be alive, to be thriving, to be kicking it, to be able to say that I'm doing the best that I can, and I am just trying to stay strong, especially in a time when the doom and gloom of the world is intentionally trying to desensitize me and you and everybody around the world. They try to make it so that fighting back against all of this authoritarian BS is hopeless. You gotta fight against that doom and gloom. That urge to just say, yeah, it's hopeless, there's nothing we can do about it, it's tempting. But you know what? I haven't succumbed to that in a very long time, and I'm quite proud of myself. And I most certainly didn't do that all throughout this year. But there are some traps that I did fall into this year that I'm not quite proud of. And one of those instances is letting my anger consume me. It's not just about my anger being expressed in an unhealthy way, but it's more so that I let my anger affect my quality of life. And that's something that I need to work on, that I need to fight back against. But anger in and of itself is the most human emotion that we have, because it's our ability to look at something and say, yeah, that's not fucking cool, that's not fucking okay whatsoever, that shouldn't happen. And so while this is not a look back onto the year of 2025, this is a message to everybody, to my audience, to not let yourself succumb to the hopeless and disparity of it all. Because that's what the ruling class wants. That's what I've learned in the last 10 years, is that the ruling class wants you to feel hopeless. They want you to look at how horrible things are. And 10 years ago, I clearly exhibited that mentality. And that is so damaging, because it prevents you from taking action to make a better future. And no, I'm not saying that you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be a hard worker. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that if the system and the powers that be force you to live within the material conditions that are detrimental to your survival, you tell them fuck no, and you take matters into your own hands and you fight the fuck back like your life depends on it. You don't just succumb to this fucking doom and gloom. Don't just succumb to the rhetoric that the neo-Nazis have been trying to install into our regular society, that the world is degenerating and that everybody is just becoming brain rotted and shit. Don't succumb to that. We are human beings after all. We live on this planet. We have to fight back. We have to keep fighting. And I don't personally care what your New Year's resolution is for 2026 and onward. It's nothing that you have to prove to me or anyone whatsoever, although feel free to comment if you would like to share what your New Year's resolution is going to be. But one thing that I want to make absolutely clear is that if the powers that be are bringing you down, you must fight back. You owe it to yourself. And then, of course, you owe it to the literal precedent of the future that is going to be of humanity. Because if the powers that be are going uncorrected and continue to go uncorrected, then we are saying that all of the atrocities that we see in our society, whether it be anti-trans legislation that further marginalize us, or the Palestinian genocide at the hands of Israel with US taxpayer dollars, or if the Democratic Party continues to perform fellatio to the Republican Party over and over and over again with no alternative dual power structure to counterbalance the establishment that continues to put the working class at bay, preventing us from organizing in the first place, well then, my friends, we're setting a precedent that it is permissible that the US empire and all of the imperialistic nation states around the world can just fucking pulverize us and just exploit us and take every single fucking ounce of our fucking labor force to be able to just grow their empire and destroy any ounce of humanity that we have left. Because we have souls. Everybody has a soul. You have a soul, I have a soul, and deep down in our soul, if we're gonna allow our own depression and our own sense of doom in these trying times to dominate our social psychology and our ability to fight back, well, my friends, then that means the ruling class has won. And my friends, I'm still alive. It has been 10 years since I made that very depressing video where I predicted the future. And although my prediction wasn't really all that off, I gotta say for certain that I'm still here. Because I'm pretty sure when I made that video, I was off on one thing, and that is, I probably wasn't counting on being alive 10 years later after making that video. But I'm still here. I'm a fucking problem for the Christian nationalist motherfuckers. I'm a fucking problem for them. And you know what? I fucking love it. And you know what? You should be a problem for the Christian nationalists as well. You should be a fucking problem for the US empire. Be a problem for Israel. Be a problem for all of the hegemonic nation states that continue to maintain supremacy over our fucking planet. Make it so that you're a problem, and so make it so that they no longer fucking exist. Cheers to a better future.